Good morning, everybody. Hope everybody is caffeinated and ready for this kick-ass session on data and AI, and that's why we're all here. Let me first introduce myself, and we'll do a round of introduction here very quickly. I run a venture fund called LFX Venture Partners, very much focused on investing in supply chain logistics and retail operation. All the unsexy stuff that actually move, and help sell goods that power the global economy. So with that, you have a question there? Okay, thank you. And so with that, a quick round of intro. We'll start actually from Dave on that side.
Thanks. Good morning, everyone. Welcome. Happy to get the morning kicked off with y'all. My name is Dave Broering. I'm the president of Integrated Logistics at NFI. That represents all the non-asset-based logistics here in our company, which is one of the largest family-owned, privately held 3PLs in the United States, focused on North American transportation and distribution. And really here to talk a lot about the custom technology and integrations that we've been building over the years.
Good morning. I also lost my voice last night. My name's Eric Kaiser. I'm the CEO at Orderful. I've been in the data integration space for about 15 years, focused on making it very easy for supply chains to trade data, specifically EDI. So that's been the focus of my career. Excited to be here.
Good morning. My name is Dara Mann. I'm the CIO at Werner Enterprises. We're a top 5 truckload carrier in the US, but we also cover most modes. We have a brokerage. We cover intermodal, van, and one-way and dedicated. And looking forward to our conversation this morning.
Good morning. I'm Judy Webb-Hapgood. I'm the Chief Supply Chain Officer for both the University of Miami and the University of Miami Health System. And I'm here to kind of give you a different perspective on supply chain, logistics, transportation from the academic side and health system side. And I just want to say thank you for everyone that's in this room that supported all your hospitals, clinics, and the healthcare environment, because without you all during COVID, we wouldn't have been able to take care of our community and our patients. So thank you.
So with that, first of all, do you guys hear a bit of echo? Can everybody hear us okay? Good, perfect. So we're here to talk about data and AI, 2 big buzzwords, right? But I think my job, together with you guys, is let's really break it down to the business level. Forget about the buzzwords and what can we do? So let's start with one simple question. I will start from Judy. Same question for all of you. Do you have enough data? Do you not have enough data? Do you have too much data?
Yes, yes, and yes. So the reason I say that, and I'm going to speak mostly from the healthcare side, is there is so much data. I would say there's 1 million data points every day that we have to analyze to be able to make it a solution on the supply chain side. So there are so many, right here in this audience alone, platforms out there that you can get your data from. And so picking and choosing the correct data platforms and data sets to make into real life solutions and not just this, wow, look at the numbers. How are you able to use that? I would also say that sometimes we have too much, because on the healthcare side, we have to integrate that in ERP systems with Epic or whatever your EMR is. And that is the difficulty, is because there's so many options out there, it doesn't talk to each other. So then it limits our ability to really take those insights intelligently and put it into real life solutions. So I would say in this space, we're still working on that and we need to get better.
I'm firmly on the side of we have way too much data. I think, we collect data in the hopes that we're going to use it at some point. And I think just in transportation in general, which is very similar to every other industry across the world, I think we collect way too much data. And, I'll give you an example. We have 10,000 trucks on the road. We have 186 sensors on those trucks. We have 7 or 8 IoT devices, and we collect all that data and we store all that data, and we probably make use of about 5% of it. Now, the hopes is that at some point we'll use all that other data in preventative maintenance and other areas. But right now, we're making use of very little of it. So I think we have to get to a place where we're collecting just the data we need for that point in time, but have the ability to pull in the data as we need it. And I think about it from every perspective, just storage, the amount of overhead it creates in your environment, the impact it has on the environment. I think we really have to tackle that problem and tackle it soon.
I'll go to Dave first. Eric, I'll come back to you. Sure.
They're putting the data guy on the sidelines. I'd say we never have enough data. I think our bigger problem is that we have too many sources of data. And we work really hard on figuring out how to prioritize those things, how to connect them together, and then schematically model them so they relate to each other. And that is the complexity that I think people get overwhelmed by with feeling like they have too much data. But the truth is they really just have too many sources of data that don't correlate very well together.
So the reality, that's sort of a trick question, obviously. I think Judy answered the question really well. It's yes, yes, and yes, right? We have a lot of data we're already working with. It's overwhelming for the tools, the systems we have. And yet at the same time, Dave, to your point, we'll always need more data. We'll probably have much, much more, many times more data in the coming years. Now it comes down to, with all the data we have, even though we still have data gap in our system, how do we make sure that, the data is accessible? The data is ready at enterprise level for AI to kick in to do its magic, right? I'm teeing this question up for you, Eric. So how do we make sure that data, what's the best way to make sure at enterprise level data is ready is AI ready?
So I think it has to be structured, and you have to understand what it means, right? And it has to be in a normalized format where it's easily accessible. And I think that's a problem with supply chain data, is it's all in different places. It's coming from different sources, whether it's EDI or an API integration, doesn't matter. But that's the big challenge, is how do you aggregate all this information and put it in one place? And we have a little bit of an unfair advantage there because we're an API company. So we take all the EDI data and we normalize it. So we don't have the same challenge that maybe an enterprise has in terms of collecting this stuff. But I think that's the biggest challenge that companies face, is it's in so many different formats. There's no one standard way of aggregating it, one standard way of normalizing it.
So the follow-up question is to the three of you here. Not only do you run massive enterprise yourself, right? And your enterprise also works with many other partners that are big enterprises as well. So how do you make sure today that from a data accessibility perspective, the data in your organization coming out, let's say if NFI does business with University of Miami Health Systems, what is the right way? What is the standard today to talk to each other? So
there isn't one.
So I have a little story to tell Dave before you get started. When we were doing the prep call, there was an interesting, dynamic, healthy debate between Dave and Dara about EDI versus API. So that's the EDI camp. This Dara works for Association for API, right? So these are the, obviously there's a big debate there. What do you think? What is the standard today, and where do you think from a data communication and data transfer perspective, what is going to be the norm of the future?
It's not that I'm anti-API. It's that I think that APIs are more complicated than people make them out to be. And EDI is brittle. It's prone to fits and starts. It's harder to manage. If you don't have a partner like Orderful that can give you a lot of proactive management concepts on the inbound side, you can miss things very easily. But I think really what it comes down to is when you're thinking about the way that you share data, it's about coming up with a shared language and understanding the way the other party does business. And look, APIs come in all shapes and sizes. EDI comes in all shapes and sizes. You have to really understand what your business needs and then how you're going to represent that back out to the world. And in traditional enterprise to enterprise relationships, those things are very standardized. I think the harder challenge is with all of the, and I really want to go there with Dara on the unbundling versus bundling, but out in this expo hall, there are 500 providers of new technology that all have a different way of giving you data. And getting to a shared language with them is really complicated. And so finding that way to canonize your data is a lot harder today than it was 20 years ago, when you had pretty much one-to-one and maybe 5 external communications that weren't customers or high-volume vendors. And now I have 50. And that is a much harder prospect than it used to be.
And it will only become even more complex in the future with all the different systems and partners.
Unless you ask Dara.
So, Dara, you have the opportunity to combat.
So we're not as far, I mean, I'm inclined to just take exactly the opposite position for fun, but we're not as far apart as people may think. I mean, I think I agree with most of what you said. First of all, EDI, ultimately it has to go away. I mean, it's a 45-year-old technology that really hasn't changed much in that period.
It's older than that, actually.
It's older than that, right? You're right.
Predates the internet.
Yeah, there you go, right? So it's old. It's probably one of the oldest technologies still really in widespread use, and it takes up so much time. It is anything but a standard. Everyone has customized it beyond recognition, so it has to go away. Now, on the flip side, I agree, APIs can be made more complicated than they need to be. I'm a massive proponent of open APIs. Just everything you build, like the way I explain it to vendors, if there's a piece of data on a user interface, put it in your API, period. And maybe even some more on top of that, and make it open and accessible to any of your vendors. And I think that's the way we have to go. I mean, it's the API economy. I talk all the time about building applications on APIs, and the APIs become more important than the application almost, because if the APIs is your foundation and it's really strong, flexible, and works, the application doesn't really matter in terms of, the data flow. So I think APIs are the way to go. I think that's where we're all headed. I don't do business with anyone who doesn't have an API. And quite frankly, if there's an easier way to move data between applications and between companies, I haven't found it. And I would love to find one, right? Easier is always better. So we're not that far apart. We're not heading for the park, and not just yet.
One of the assumptions we're making here, this discussion, is that it's easy for folks to change the way they work, right? Which is not exactly the right assumption in most cases. EDI, Dara, as you mentioned, has been around 45 years, did you say?
I think it's like 60 years. It's a long time.
It's a long time. It's beyond me. So assuming this has been around for 50, 60 years, and people are still working with EDI, is it a fair assumption that EDI will still be the go-to workflow, the method, right?
I think it's...
If that's the assumption, how do we make EDI easier for everybody?
I think it's easy for these guys to say it's going to go away and they can build APIs.
I didn't say that, just to be clear.
He didn't.
They have big wallets. But I think for the rest of the economy, the rest of the companies out there that already are trading EDI, it's really hard for companies to go and publish and make their own software, right? So if you think about, everybody publishing their own API, they have to have a developer to go and build the infrastructure, create the documentation. It's actually a pretty big lift. So I think the world will continue to run on EDI, and it's actually, what we're seeing is it's growing every year. More and more companies are trading EDI for sure.
I think it also has to do with antiquated systems. And so you've got a lot of businesses out there that have this infrastructure that works. And when you've got a partner like Orderful who can obviate away that pain and make it feel like an API to us, to take away the technical complexity that's necessary from a labor perspective for managing those inputs, centralize it in a way that allows a non-technical user to really meter that workflow, it makes the really brutal pain of EDI sort of fade away. And for me, that's why I really don't care if EDI goes away anymore. 10 years ago, I would have absolutely been banging the drum. And I'm an unapologetic fan of Orderful because they've transformed the way that we do the business together. And we can turn on EDI in 36 hours now, and there's no brain damage for it. And so for me, it's fine. Let it continue.
Yeah.
Okay, hold on. I'm going to jump in here.
Go for it.
Because these three guys can debate back and forth, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask every one of you guys out here. You've heard them all complain about both, right? There's pros and cons to both. Why aren't you guys...
I love both of them. I'm not complaining.
Okay.
He's the only one who's not complaining.
But as I walked out there yesterday in the expo center, there are brilliant people out there. Okay, in the healthcare space, years ago, 20, 30 years ago, you would go in and get your gallbladder out and they would totally open you up. Now you go in and it's a laparoscopically, little puncture holes, and you're out in the same day most of the time, right? If healthcare sat around and complained about all the issues of these systems and we didn't do anything about it, you guys would be mad as hell at us in the healthcare space. So 60, 40, 30 years of complaining about this, why isn't someone out there making it better? That's what I am telling all of the vendors that come to me, suppliers coming to me, saying, I have the best data set, I have end-to-end supply chain, analytics, all that information. Show it to me. Show me how you're going to make it better. Stop complaining about it. It is a time in an environment in supply chain where we need to pivot and make it better.
Judy is a doer, obviously.
That's a high five.
Judy's going to be an order for customers too.
She's going to make sure that things get down and you're not experiencing any unnecessary pain in your body. So Judy, one of the things that we discuss is actually a fundamental issue in data and AI, which is data accuracy. So we're talking about EDI, API, we're talking about transfer data and making sure that you communicate in the same language, right? But if the data is not accurate at the first place, then the diagnosis will completely wrong. Your gallbladder issue will become a headache, right? So how do we make sure, how can we address data accuracy issue, especially in the context, moving trucks is a little bit different from actually diagnosis of people's health, right?
So I would say how we do it in the healthcare space, even in the academic university space, is when you start looking at your data sets, you put guardrails and you put business rules on them. And those have to be clearly defined. Kind of what you mentioned earlier is your terminology. It's got to be a business rule that's across the enterprise with the supplier vendor and your IT system and everybody else. I think that's, and you all know, the medical field, we use terminology that no one understands besides the medical folks. And so to cross that into supply chain, you have to set clear parameters, guardrails, and business rules of how that data is collected and what it actually means.
This is actually, so I think half of the discussion, we're supposed to focus on AI, right? So we've had enough data discussion here. Now, assuming we're able to get accurate data that's accessible, data that actually means the same thing to everybody across the entire ecosystem network, right? What can we do with the data? What decisioning can we do leveraging the data? And is that a people-driven decision or is that AI-driven decision? Now, AI, again, is a big buzzword. I'm not technical, but my my little brain, how I process the word AI is really understanding. There's, the buzzword generative AI, which is AI does magic, everything they can do on their own, right? That's sort of the common understanding. Then there's now what I call good old traditional machine learning, which is only 10 years old, and now it's compared to generative AI, it's traditional. Then there's older operational constraint optimization. So in this context, AI is actually working within the box, the guardrails set by by human intelligence, right? So with that framework, can you guys talk about today, how do you leverage your data? How do you put AI to work to truly drive business results?
So I think the first thing is the possibilities are endless. I mean, they really are. I think it's also important for us to recognize that just like, I always say this, like right now, AI really is advanced machine learning, very advanced machine learning, but that's what it is. And I think we have to recognize that we still have to have, in a lot of cases, human intervention to make sure that the right decisions are being made by AI. So that's important. Now, for us, the possibilities really are endless. From the simplest things like a chatbot that we've deployed to drivers, which they can ask any question about DOT regulation, and we're looking up 500 or 600 documents and just, they're using natural language and we're just populating a response to them. So that helps us tremendously. It saves calls to our call center. But then from preventative maintenance, for example, where we could take all of those 186, data points that we get from the truck and use those to say, hey, the batteries are going to go dead in this truck in 4 weeks, replace them now versus wait for it at the side of the road, or your alternator is about to go dead, or your brakes need to be replaced. And we're already using it in that context and making big inroads into how we manage our maintenance programs. But then in general, it's across the board. How do we, we're using AI for our pricing, just on regular brokerage lanes, what's the right price? And we're almost turning it into a stock market type approach where we ticker the price and here's what we price it at this point, and it's based on multiple inputs from multiple systems across, not just our systems, externally as well. And our pricing has improved dramatically because of that. We're using it in all types of optimization ways. Today alone, we've talked with 3 different optimization companies who will take our inbound freight, how we ingest it, how we divvy up that freight, where we send it to. So I think the possibilities are endless, and we're only just touching the first layer of what it can do for us. So we have to keep on it, but we have to be really smart about how we use it, and we have to make sure for right now that we have human intervention at the critical points.
Judy, so we're talking about data accuracy, which is a problem that you must solve in the healthcare system. Do you think AI, especially generative AI, can actually help you address data accuracy problem?
Yeah, I actually do. And I think AI is the buzzword, but you got to remember what AI is for your organization. There's still people behind there. You have to have smart people, right? And I say smart people. So in the healthcare space, what AI is doing for us is gathering all those millions of data points in a day. And I'm going to just quickly throw out a couple of things at you. Okay, so I have a doctor doing a procedure in a clinic. I have a doctor doing surgery in a hospital, all right? All those data points, everything in there has to be captured. But there's so many data sets. How does a person sit through and gather all that information to the end results of what product, what's the price, and what's the productivity and the workflow for supply chain to be able to support that? And it changes every day in healthcare. Unlike, I know they probably have a couple of fluctuation with transportation and trucking, but I don't have the same patients coming in my hospital, my ER, my clinics every day. Those diagnoses are different. So when I talk about daily million data sets, I'm not kidding. And that's how AI is able to pull that to us, put it in the system with smart, intelligent, meticulous, detailed people giving me the information to do supply chain predictability, flexibility, and being able to let us pivot when we need our supplies.
Dave, I know you're working with a lot of interesting solutions in the AI space as well.
I think it's overrated.
Overrated.
So what I would say is we've done a little bit of work with it. It's not as cheap as people think it is.
Not as cheap?
It's not as cheap as people think it is. Transportation is a pennies business, something we talk about all the time inside of our company, and proactive investment in our business is a challenge. And so for us, we've tried to be really prescriptive about using it specifically where we trust the data. And because one, asking a bot questions, so we think of it internal use, not really external use, trying to find a way to get to data faster, trying to give our users better information so they can do their job better, faster, remember to do things like that. But starting really small and testing and learning. And as we've released these to our average everyday employees, they really struggle to interact with them because there's a way that you need to communicate with them. There's a way to pull the data the right way. People like to use slang. People like to use different terms. And again, we call it a load. They ask for a shipment. It may not return the right result. And so you have to really work hard in those generative models to get the AI to really work with your users across a really broad spectrum of queries to get true value out of it. And so just a one simple bot could cost us $3,000 or $4,000 a month. And if it doesn't create value, you really need to move on pretty quickly. So we've really kept it relatively tight to a small group of users and try to limit it to getting feedback quickly so we can figure out whether it creates value. And if it doesn't, then we're going to rip it up and move on.
Eric, I know you're working with a lot of customers, right? And your primary job is to make sure that your customers are, in a way, data ready and AI ready. Do you think, obviously without having to mention names, do you feel across the market, do you think the industry is AI ready? And for the ones that are doing well in terms of leveraging AI, why they're doing well. Why do you think, what do they need to have ready from a human perspective to be able to leverage AI?
So I think the first problem we talked about in this talk is like, how do you aggregate all this information so you can actually make it actionable? I think that's the big challenge. Like for enterprise, you have information everywhere in different systems. Could be different backend systems, different partners, different formats, et cetera. So that's the first problem. So I think AI actually will help a lot in getting that data aggregated and normalized. Our whole goal at Orderful is to make EDI trading fast and very easy. And part of that is, connecting systems together. And I think AI will be applied. I know there's a ton of iPaaS companies already working on this, on making API to API integrations automated or EDI integrations automated using AI. So I think there's like one application there, which will be used to tie systems together. And I think we'll probably see that in the next 12 months for sure. I think the second application is once you have the information, it helps humans make better decisions. So at Orderful, we sit at the nexus of trade, right? We sit in the middle of all these supply chain companies. We can help them make better decisions about their own data. For example, NFI's truckloads, we could look at all the carriers on the platform, all the orders, and see how much it costs, and show Dave like how much it costs to ship a truck from point A to point B this morning, or what they paid for it. So, I think like as platforms start to aggregate information and have a way to normalize it, there will be more application to help users make better decisions. But the first problem has to be solved where we can actually aggregate and normalize the data in a way that's usable.
So we have 3 minutes left. I do want to make sure that we have questions from the audience. Anybody? Just raise your hands.
So question was more real world use cases of AI and data machine learning. Well, I think the most common in our industry and the non-asset-based logistics side is around pricing prediction, aggregation of multiple sources of data for a single predicted rate of either cost or of procuring capacity or of actual rate to the customer. The ones that we're really looking at are a lot more around trend analytics. So are we getting the loads the customer committed to us in RFP? Are we talking to a customer or a carrier at the right interval according to our normal business cadence? Really helping to highlight for users where they might be missing things, knowing that their day-to-day operational workload takes them away from those exact things. So those are a couple of the small, I won't take all the time, but those are a couple of the really simple, very basic things we're working on with the data today.
Yeah. And I would just say we haven't touched on just commercially available AI tools. We all know them, but if we just look at the development in our organization, the development teams, like using Microsoft Copilot, like the amount of mundane code writing that these guys don't have to do anymore is just fantastic. Like literally they will just throw code in and say, hey, extend this for me, fix this for me, QA this for me, create unit tests for me, and it does it in seconds. And then just for me on a personal level, if I get an 80-page contract and I need a summary of what's in that contract, it churns it out. It would take a lawyer a half a day to do that for me. It churns it out in 5 minutes, and it's extremely accurate. So I think those use cases, let's not forget about them. And if we're not all using those tools right now, honestly, I think you're crazy. Like, get there and start using them immediately.
I think we're really early in the AI journey. But like imagine a world where if you're a brand or you're a trucking company and you want to understand like how much your goods could sell in a certain region, or like imagine if you sold wetsuits and you wanted to see the zip codes where wetsuits are sold. You could use an aggregate data set to figure all that out and do all your supply chain planning with AI. And today, I think businesses are making the best decisions they can with the information they have. But a lot of this information isn't aggregated and available for use. So I think that will be a real application in the next 12, 24 months, something like that.
The only other one I'll add real quick that I was remiss in excluding is the ability to write code faster. And so the ability to develop internally quicker or with your partners and expecting a faster turnaround. A lot of what I understand about where AI is really being useful is in the development of really repetitive code, because the old adage is you'd never use copy and paste in writing code. AI can help replace that in a way that's a lot more predictable and trustworthy.
So we're out of time, but before we leave, I do want to ask the panel one last question, which is the human side of data and AI. Do you all have data scientists? Do you need to hire more data scientists? Yes. Really more for these three. Erica, I know you want a question. Do you have a team of data scientists? And do you need to hire more data scientists?
We do have data scientists at the University of Miami, both on the academic side and the university side. Do we need more? I don't know that we need more. I think what we do is we develop a team that is clearly knows what we're looking for. Once again, it's really establishing those guardrails, those business rules, and that data scientist is the leader of that, and so I think it's not that you need more. It's, are we really utilizing what we have currently on our FTE side? Because we're all limited on resources, so just kind of keep that in mind.
Yes, we have a team of data scientists, and honestly, I don't need more, and I think the main reason for that is AI, because they're using it so effectively.
Yes.
We do, but I don't think we're going to hire a lot more. We've found a lot more value in outsourced partnerships with expertise that spans across multiple fields and industries that creates a lot more value for us. We're intending on spending a lot more time with that than hiring them ourselves.
Great. With that, please join me in thanking the experts, the panelists here. Thank you very much.